Welcome. I am excited to have you join me in this presentation, which will be largely spontaneous. As the Spirit moves me to speak, I will say, although I've prepared on this topic for months, so I know it very well. However, as things go along, I may forget where I am or I might have technical difficulties. And I want you to know that it's okay with me. And I hope it's okay with you because I've given up being a perfectionist. Being a perfectionist is one of the patterns that the fixer is included in them. In fact, the fixer is often a perfectionist, a people pleaser, overachiever, etc. So we will get to the official slide presentation in a moment, but I first want to tell you a little bit of myself. I don't know whether you looked at my credentials, but I earned my PhD in clinical psychology in 1981, which was a long time ago. And in that time, I worked at the counseling center at UC Berkeley. And after I early retired, I was in private practice for decades. In that time, I learned, trained in more modalities. I'm a learner. I just keep wanting to learn. So I have many certifications under my belt. So in some ways, I'm a successful professional where I hope you feel yourself successful in what you do with your family, your friends, or in your workplace. But this topic may have intrigued you because it's addressing what brought you success. Being a fixer is a wonderful pattern that created success. I unknowingly did this, and it was a wonderful strategy and role to take on. And as a result of that, I was pleasant on the outside, people pleasing, and felt I'm okay. There's nothing more else to do. But then, since I was operating out of my intellect, I have a master's in philosophy. That's how intellectual I am. And so about 12 years ago, intuition broke through. I was writing a chapter in a best-selling series, and I can see myself on the sofa, pen in hand, about to write. And then I heard, listen to the cries of your heart. I was startled and mesmerized because I've never heard intuition speak to me that way. I hope some of you hear intuition better than I at that particular point. But it began for me a journey of listening to my heart, and that took me to on a path to heal my heart. And the result of this was an inner child method, an inner child exploration. And that's my specialty, and you'll hear about it soon. But the point of this is that I was moving along on the traditional path of success until intuition decided that was not good enough. I was not on my life purpose. I didn't even think about what my life purpose was. I was just doing what was on the path. So this inner child work that I do and this fixer's freedom is to help you see that the pattern of the fixer keeps you so much on a particular path, you don't see much else. This is so funny. I am not one who speaks with my hands. And I took a training that showed me that in order to do successful presentation, you have to show your hands. Because you know what? People trust you if you show your hands. Did you know that? So, Lisa, if you were to speak, I can see you and I would be able to see your hands. So that yeah, you're you become more trustworthy. So anyway, my story continues that when I became an inner child specialist, I recognized different patterns that the inner child takes on. But this one really got me because I realized this is who I am. I am a fixer. So, what I'm going to be talking about are things that I have experienced. And once I started focusing on that, fixers started arriving in my practice. Like one in particular, who for 31 years had a business where she had 51 employees. That kept her busy because she was a fixer and she gave and took care of everyone. And 4 years ago, she developed cancer, which we'll talk about later. And as we speak and have sessions together, she says, I know I'm a giver, but I can't stop giving. So she can see the patterns, and we have yet to move to the place where she can release what it is that has her on this path. So I will include my story and other stories in this presentation. So let's see how much my system works in terms of sharing. So, Fixer's Freedom, the name of this masterclass. Stop doing everything for everybody. So something about this attracted you to this topic. And we can begin our first share in the chat. What about being a fixer or thinking that you might be is a reason why you're here? Or is it a reason that you don't know quite why you're here, but intuition said, you need to join this, and you just signed up? And if you trust your intuition, you are many steps ahead of where I was 12 years ago. So if anyone writes in the chat, Doug will let me know in reflecting why you joined us here. What brought you here? Any chat? Anything in the chat? Meanwhile, I want you to know that this presentation is not about my pouring all the information and knowledge I have to pose it to your brain. If you have read many books, taken many courses, listened to many podcasts, and you continue to do that because you have been caught up in the pattern of thinking that if you get it in your brain, something's going to change. But guess what? It doesn't. The information.
It's the project of fixing yourself.
And guess what? Unless you take care of that fixer pattern and others like it, you will keep on living the life that you have. Later on, I will talk about how 95% of what the life you have today is determined by your subconscious. 95% of what shows up in the next hour, in the day ahead of you is created by your subconscious. And if you don't like the repetition of what you're doing and it's not satisfying, guess what? You need to get out of your intellect and address other parts of you. But that's later on in the story. Anyone
And
else? Yeah,
we have a number of comments in the chat.
please tell me.
Naomi just had a question that she has, I guess, I assume, drained energy, and she was wondering if that was pertinent.
Absolutely.
Alan says he spent a lifetime being a people pleaser, even at the expense of his own personal well-being. Laura said, I have been a fixer since being a child, started out in foster care.
Oh,
It is a way of control for me.
yes. I'm glad that you say that. Anything more, Doug?
Yes, Lisa said, I am interested in the concept of the fixer. I might have been like this before now, and I recognize this in other people.
Yes. One of my stories is going to be about my daughter, who is a super fixer, and she will remain nameless, but I can give her details because we just witnessed being with her, being a super fixer, and how exhausted she is, and a people pleaser too. Anyway, we could go on with that. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Jacqueline said, intuition and wanting to look after my own needs more. I believe it's Vanessa said, tend to automatically want to nurture almost everyone.
Both of those are really important because a fixer, as we'll get into in detail, is so focused on trying to help fix other people that their needs are not primary. And that is one of the points I will make, but I will make it again.
And someone said, I know I'm a fixer because I've always trying to help someone with something, always needing to be needed, I'd
Yes,
suppose. But I denied myself so many times, and now I realize that I can't help unless I help myself first.
wonderful realization. Thank you.
And Colette says, I got an invitation for this presentation. I just thought it sounded interesting. I know I'm a people pleaser, a highly sensitive person, and an empath. I have been walked over my whole life.
Oh. I totally get that. And those of you here who are very sensitive, you take on so much when you come into this human life because the amount of stuff, stimulation out there, even in the womb, is overwhelming. And you have to find a way of surviving. And being a fixer, being a people pleaser are two of the patterns. Being super self-reliant is another one. But the point of this is we'll get to these early experiences of different aspects of the fixer. You have provided so much here. Um, I I don't know what's being recorded. But I'm going to move to the next slide. Okay. What it says on top that I cannot see is
What is a
it's a
fixer?
fixer. What is a fixer? And already people have mentioned some of this. I want to tell you a story about anticipating others' needs. My father, um, when we used to go back home into Hawaii to be with them, I have three other sisters. We loved to sing together. So whenever we gather, we would sing. And we didn't have a music stand. So the second day, my father presented us with a music stand that we could use. He had looked and anticipated what we needed and provided. Didn't ask for it, didn't even think we needed one, but there he was. So I kind of inherited that. And as you'll hear, so has my father. When you anticipate other people's needs, like when you're around people, you might offer someone a suggestion because you see that they need some help. Like simple things like you're around a dining room table and it's formally set up. And some people are not used to forks and knives and spoons being set up the way they are, and they may look puzzled. So you might step in and say, uh, hey, isn't this somewhat confusing? I found it overwhelming at first. And I just want to say that I think I've got it. And so you're already fixing a person's puzzlement without their asking for it. Another is taking responsibility quickly. When everything is not quite right, do you sense it and want to jump in and do what you can to fix the situation? Simple thing like there's been a gathering in an office or in family, something, and everyone's done with their dinner and they're going on to the next thing. But you notice that the dishes haven't been cleared and all of that, and you just jump in. You're going to be responsible. You're not going to leave a mess. You also learn to be very resourceful about fixing problems. If you can't fix it this way, you will use your time to figure out how to fix it. Doug, who is my partner, who is from Pittsburgh, cannot help. If one solution doesn't work, he keeps going, keeps going. He is a super fixer. The other is disappointing others. Can someone give an example of how you avoid disappointing others? Um, I had a gathering of my sister's 90th birthday this Monday. And the fixer in me was ensuring that everyone was taken care of. I didn't want anyone to be disappointed in their experience of this party. And it's not anything I can turn off. So even at 3 o'clock in the morning, when my kids had gathered for my birthday, I was awake, making sure that the plans of the day met everyone's needs. I didn't want to be doing that at 3 a.m., but that's how the fixer works. It doesn't leave you alone. And someone mentioned feeling that their worth is acquired by being needed. And the fixer feels guilty saying no. All requests are welcome. So, this is how we can describe the fixer. So now it's time for your participation. Say yes in the chat if you find that you anticipate others' needs. Yes.
Yes, we're seeing a number of yeses.
How many of you say yes in the chat if you take on responsibility quickly? Not so many yeses. Well, a
Oh,
few.
we're getting
Yeah,
there.
they're coming. Yes, lots. Okay. How many of you find you're a problem solver and you love taking on that role? That's how you fix things, solve problems. Great. Now, how many of you see that you avoid disappointing others? In some ways, showing your people-pleasing aspect. You don't want anyone unhappy. You want to keep people happy. Yes, I see the yeses.
Yes, they're coming.
Yeah, and how many of you feel guilty saying no to any requests of you? Even requests that aren't said, you don't want to say no. You jump and volunteer. You're the first volunteer. And how many of you recognize that you have the not necessarily conscious um, need, and I mean measuring your worth by being needed? All right, so now we move to, and
I'd
I,
like to mention that I'm a retired physician, and I wonder how many people are in jobs where fixing is part of the MO.
right. So educators are, service providers certainly are, nurses, doctors, health professional. Um, but it also occurs in the corporate scene. You're the vice president, you're the team leader, you're the manager, you're the executive, because you are incredibly responsible. So yeah. So the positive features of this is that people like you because you take responsibility and you take care of their feelings. You don't disappoint them. And any requests, you can't say no. So they're very happy to have you around. So there are positive aspects of being a fixer. Are you a confidant for people? They love to talk to you because they want someone to share what they're going through. So you become a confidant. Maybe in grade school, even, people are telling you their problems. All right, we will move on. I'm not getting off my slides. All right, here is the consequences where being a fixer becomes a burden. Did someone mention being exhausted and overwhelmed? This is so common. I want to begin to tell you about one of my clients whom I hope to introduce you to at the end of this presentation. She was a successful in her international education company. She was a social media expert. So everyone wanted her help. She was overwhelmed with requests. And of course, she couldn't say no. So she tried to help everyone. Then she described where she was looking at the screen about all the requests and what she needed to do, which she ordinarily could execute very quickly. But she was so exhausted, she just stared at the screen, overwhelmed, frozen, and unable to do anything. Some of you might feel a quiet resentment, a quiet anger, or maybe an open anger for what it's cost you, where you look back and how much you've given emotionally, materially, in all the ways that a fixer does, and you realize you've paid a high price, and the people that you're helping are not expressing appreciation. They just take and take. And so there might be quiet resentment, or open anger. Another is having difficulty receiving. I experienced this with Doug because he tries to fix and do a lot. And there are times when I just say no. And part of it is because it's truly a no, but part of it is because I have this fixer pattern left that doesn't easily receive. How many of you feel anxiety and hypervigilance? You're constantly looking to see what needs to be fixed, who needs to be fixed, and there are physical consequences. This person that I spoke to, who overwhelmed by her social media activity, expertise and all the requests that came, while I was working with her, she collapsed in bed with pneumonia. And even in the time she was supposed to be in bed rest, she got up and worked on a side project of being an executive producer of a documentary that she was involved in. So even exhausted, bedridden, she nonetheless showed up for that assignment for 2 weeks. That's how extreme it can be. And then I may have mentioned before the presentation, possibly a recent client who, after 31 years, needed to retire from her business because she developed cancer. It is not unusual for autoimmune symptoms to show up: irritable bowel, chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia. Just plain exhaustion is enough, isn't it? And then finally, noticing that as successful as you may appear, you don't feel fulfilled. And that's what I notice. That as successful as I may appear to be on the outside, when I went to look inside, not only did I find my heart broken so many times, not healed, but no sense that what I was doing as a professional really fulfilled me until I started doing this inner child work. So say yes in the chat if you know exhaustion and overwhelm.
Number of yeses, Anne.
Good. How many of you feel a quiet resentment or an open anger at for all that you've done, that the people that you've given to don't even recognize it, don't appreciate it? They just keep accepting your generosity. Yes? How many of you find difficulty receiving? When I say the loss of self, what I mean by this, you know, the self that had dreams? Do you know the self that knows how to play? I know that because you know when people tell you, all right, if you're in this want business success, you need 5-year goals. So write your 5-year goals. My goodness, I couldn't even think of a 1-year goal. I couldn't dream that far. I couldn't think of what would make me happy. That's how much I lost sense of myself. And knowing how to play, I'm working on that. I I'm getting ideas of what it is to play, but I have my watercoloring material set aside for weeks. and other things as well. So, how many of you feel that you've lost a sense of who you are in terms of having dreams and longings that you feel in your heart that you can hear and attend to?
It's
How many?
challenging.
Yeah,
It's challenging to have your own priorities when your priorities are everybody else.
exactly. Exactly. How many of you feel unseen or unappreciated? Say yes in the chat if you notice a quiet anxiety and that you're hyper vigilant, always paying attention to problems, to people in need. Any? Yes. You have to tell me because I can't see the
Yeah, there's a large number of yeses, and
wonderful. How many of you have physical consequences? I hope not, that you see that this pattern has resulted in.
someone mentioned autoimmune diseases previously.
Yes, good. Not good that you have them, but good to realize possibly that this is the result of the pattern. And finally, feeling success on the outside, but inside, there's no sense of feeling satisfied, fulfilled. Say yes in the chat.
Mearsham mentions that they feel it's probably unrelated, but they have a tumor.
Probably unrelated. That's something definitely to explore. Just to say briefly, as a healer, and I was trained as a healer over 20 years ago at the Barbara Brennan School of Healing, we learn that what conflicts occur on other levels, at cognitive level, spiritual level, emotional level, if you're not attending to them, it shows up in your body. And it's like your body is saying, you're not paying enough attention to your life. So I am getting your attention by creating a symptom to get your attention. So that's briefly my response to that. All right. So now I want to talk about how there's nothing wrong in being a fixer. There is nothing wrong in caring and wanting to please people. The problem is that it is a pattern, like other patterns, which we're going to look at, that come from early childhood wounds. When early on, I think somebody mentioned knowing very early on how they had that attitude of taking care of everyone else. That's because the childhood wounds that can create these patterns can happen even when you're in the womb. When you're a cell, getting to a point where your soul joins what is developing in the womb, you have instantly an impression of who your mother is, what she's going through is, and what your father is. And if they are wounded, they're in pain, in conflict, anxious, fighting, angry. all that biochemistry is something you're fed. And for a young being, that is overwhelming. So what I call trauma parts are created to enable you to survive. And that's what the fixer is, a trauma part, creating a pattern to help you survive. And we're grateful and appreciative that all of these parts have been created because this is why you're here today. And if you have um, become a fixer, it's provided you a path to success. So there's much to be appreciated. It is not the problem. The problem is that you can get caught up in these strategies and not realize that you need to heal the wounds that created these this pattern as well as others. So I'm going to go back to sharing my screen to um, pull up the patterns. So these are some of the patterns that we acquired when we're hurt very young. So again, I'm going to ask you to say yes in the chat if you recognize that you are a people pleaser, that you're constantly aware of making sure that people are happy, that you don't create any problems for them, that you um, are attending to people's needs. Are we getting yes in the chat?
Yes. And Colette asked the question.
Yes,
Her question was, why do some people become fixers and others don't?
they inevitably acquire some of these other patterns, such as they might become an overachiever. So they're so bent on success, they just want the promotions. They're the ones who are the vice presidents, the managers. They're out there or become independent business people and they want to acquire wealth that way. So they adopt the overachiever in terms of defining what they want in terms of money or fame. So does this make sense, Colette? Was it Colette who asked
It's
my
Colette.
question, right? Or uh you can become a controller where you are trying to control everything, and that's your what you keep in mind. So the controller also is part of being a people pleaser. You're trying to control the situation, but someone who can be a controller, for example, I think of one of my former clients who is a school teacher. Can you imagine being a controller and a people pleaser, being a school teacher of grade school kids? How overwhelming that can be. But that's the um, thing that she focuses on, what she can do to manage and control 21 students in grade two or something like that. And so the fixation is about control. So that is one illustration that I have to say other patterns can take over. So, how many of you recognize that maybe you might be a perfectionist? A perfectionist has features like, I can't make a mistake. I have to do better and better. So the fixer has this, you have to become a better fixer. So you take courses, you listen to podcasts, you read books, all of this to become better. You're not good enough. So that's part of the childhood um, impression that they got when they were hurt and they felt, I must not be good enough. That's why I don't have what I need. That's how the young child doesn't get it intellectually, but that's the impression, the self-belief that's created. How many of you admit to being an overachiever? It may not be in terms of gathering money or achievement, but to become better and better by buying courses, enrolling in courses, reading more books, because you are not, you haven't reached, because the overachiever never arrives. I've,
Colette
yeah,
says something interesting. She mentions that she's been diagnosed with obsessive compulsive disorder,
uh-huh.
which
We
I
know
think,
well,
yeah, I can say that's one of my patterns.
which is something expressive of being a controller, because what you're trying to do is handle a problem. And because you're a perfectionist, you can't stop until you have investigated every possibility. So you get on the kick of, I can't leave any stone unturned to make sure I have the very best answer for myself or answer for somebody else. Does that somewhat answer the question? Another pattern is being a conflict avoider. Do you notice that you don't want to be around people who are argumentative? You don't want to be involved. You want people to be nice and behave. And so you don't engage, you walk away from situations. But then in interpersonal situations, if you keep avoiding conflict, you never know what is up with you and possibly with the other person that is getting in the way, that creates conflict. And that is one of the things we're going to move into, because we want to have you see that you may be avoiding the conflict that comes up from these patterns or these inner children. So, can you see yourself that you avoid certain emotions as a way of making it easier for yourself? And finally, do we having some yes in the chat, Doug? Yes in the chat if you're super self-reliant. You like depending only on yourself. So this comes from the inner child when he felt abandoned, rejected, alone, because a parent wasn't there substantially enough or consistently enough. There were too many times that the young child felt, I'm here all alone, and what do I do? I have to figure this out. And some of the things they figured out are beliefs about not deserving, not being important enough. But the strategies they pick up are these patterns. Well, if I do this, I will get what I want. And what do all of us want in the end? We want love. We want that which we didn't get when we were hurt, when our parent wasn't there. But this is sometimes not so apparent because we get into these patterns that keep us on a particular path. And we forget that what we're trying to get from all of this is love. But the patterns keep us on a road we can't get off. And that's why I'm bringing this up to you to talk about. We will go back to a share uh, of this again.
Laura said something interesting that you might want to
Good.
speak to.
Yes.
She mentioned that it's hard to blame my parents as an adult. That could be addressed at a few different angles. Um,
Yes, for sure. It's not about blaming your parents. It's just recognizing the circumstances. Blaming doesn't help anyone. So, and this is not about blaming your parents, because those of you who parents know that you've tried your best, always tried your best, and you didn't succeed, and you failed your children, and you might take the blame. But from an adult point of view, blaming your parents doesn't get you free from what happened. The blame is really an expression of anger. And of course, you're not angry with your parents, but you can be angry at the circumstances that occurred, that this happened, that they were too busy, they were caught up in their own drama, etc. You can see that. You're not blaming them. They were doing the best they could. So with that perspective, perhaps you can accept that these circumstances happened. It doesn't need to involve blaming your parents. I hope that helps.
and Vanessa mentioned that she was trained by Catholic nuns that made it obvious to be disciplined and self-reliant. And I'd like to mention that it's not just our parents that can hurt us in these ways. You could be bullied as a child. You could, you know, have
Yeah,
early.
can I just ask what you meant when you said I'm a controller? Because I'm really offended by that.
Yes, say what do you want? What do you want to say?
When you said that I'm a controller, because I said that I've got OCD.
Oh, um, I was pointing to your need to,
I don't control other people.
right.
Yeah, a
It's
controller sounds like an abusive personality, and that's not what I am.
right.
In fact, it's been the other way around.
Right. And I appreciate that. I didn't mean to suggest that the teacher I was speaking about who was trying to manage her children, she's a controller, but um, she's not,
Oh, this is a lot of bullshit. I'm going.
okay.
I'd like to speak to that, even though she's gone.
Yeah.
Being one who has OCD, um, I'm trying to manage or control my own emotions, and I'm trying to manage and control a situation that is out of control. So even though I may not try to control other people, I am still trying to control myself or my circumstances.
Thank you for clarifying that. So What, in bringing all of this up, are my recommendations or ideas about what can create change, or actually what can create transformation? The first thing I want to point I want to make is the emotional reset. The second is I want to talk about inner child healing. And then I want to talk about working with the subconscious and to create more um, I talk about choices. So getting back to the full screen, I already forgot. Oh, emotional reset. The basic principle of what I suggest is that whenever you're angry, you're afraid, you're distressed, or you're sad, that this is a signal from your heart. And many of us instinctively have patterns of avoiding. Like I avoided anger most of my life for various reasons. And I don't know what emotion is particularly absent from your life, but begin to welcome them so that they show up more and more because they are messages from your heart. So, anytime you're distressed, angry, sad, or afraid, it's your heart speaking to you. So, that's the basic reset that I want you to think about. Emotions are not problems, they are messages from your heart. And anger in particular, because it's uncomfortable coming at you, someone angry. I kind of lose it when someone's angry at me. Or if I'm angry myself, I don't like that energy. So I've learned to suppress and repress it most of my life until I got into this work and realized that unless I pay attention to these emotions, I am disconnected with my heart. I'm just operating from up here. So, anger is a no from your heart, a no that says, a need is not being met. And if you can eventually get to being with angry feeling, whether it's frustration, disappointment, or annoyance, you'll be able to align with your heart and see what needs aren't being met. For example, you might get angry in a situation or just disturbed in a situation because the person you're with or the group that you're with makes you feel unsafe. How they're talking doesn't feel respectful of each other, and you feel unsafe. So if you are annoyed or irritated or want to move away, that's hearing the message of your heart. No, this is not safe for me. Another no would be someone who doesn't speak to you respectfully, whether it's in the grocery store or in a car. How many people notice that how people drive speaks volumes of whether they respect you or not? Because they zoom around you, they tailgate you, they make you feel unsafe, and they don't respect your presence. These are just kind of mundane ways that I come up with right now on how the messages from the heart are very important. And just briefly on fear, fear just, we instinctively turn away from fear. It scares us. Or anxiety gets us, I can have a whole speech on anxiety. However, fear, if you stay with the fear, you realize that the past has created a possible future that is scary, but it's not real. But if you stay with the fear to say what's expected, you can say, oh, that's not realistic. But the fear is so strong, you just run. So each feeling, emotion has a message that when you stay with is actually a way of staying with your heart. And that's the more important thing. To honor that your emotions are a way of aligning with your heart. And you cannot change any of these patterns from my point of view unless you reset with aligning with your heart. The second thing is about inner child healing. And this is what I'm all about, inner child healing. There are ways that people advertise online, talk about in podcasts, in YouTube videos about the inner child. And for me, unless you work with the inner child at the level of the subconscious, you can't get very far. So let me share another. So this is a picture of the subconscious and the conscious mind. I hope you've seen this before, and I keep this here because it's a wonderful illustration of what is happening. Your conscious mind is only 5% active right now in your everyday. It involves your logical thinking. It's about willpower and your short-term memory. It is what we're aware of right now. But 95% comes from the subconscious mind, where we have emotions, beliefs, values, past experiences, automatic patterns and habits, core identity and self-image, what runs our daily life. And we can be happy for a lot of what the subconscious mind does. It keeps our heart going, remembering to breathe, although sometimes we forget. And it makes our life easier, what I'm concerned about is when the past experience, the automatic habits and patterns are actually what we're doing in any given moment. So for the person who left, she's an 18-year-old, right? Who left? Doug?
I can't say that I'm sure.
Well, in any case, turning away from being confused is also a pattern that we have. How many of you like being in a situation that you're confused? You don't know what to do. You don't know what's going on. I don't. So when this happens, automatic habits and patterns show up. Right now, I'm confused. Where do I want to go? Okay, I'm working with the subconscious. So, in my view, because of these patterns that we went through, were created when you're really young, you cannot heal them until you work with the subconscious mind. And that's why reading many books, journaling a lot, listening to podcasts and other programs may not get you very far. So, how many of you have heard of inner children before and have tried to work with your inner child? Are we getting some chat responses, Doug?
Uh, no, not yet.
Okay,
Although um, Alan asked, what are the methods or how can one address the unconscious mind?
right.
Um,
Yes.
Mirjam said, I believe I am still a child. Um, Jacqueline mentions as part of healing from a traumatic divorce, she's addressed some inner child work.
Right. And it's wonderful, however you start, to become aware that the inner child has a lot to do with why your life is the way you want it to be. Because the traumas that you experience as adult and as a child, they're all in the subconscious.
It also,
Yeah.
oftentimes people have, myself included, have like these automatic reactions to situations that appear to be outside of our conscious control. Whether it's sudden arousal of anger or fear, it's like a trigger that we that comes out of the blue that, you know, disturbs our peace or um,
Yes.
Yeah, if I may say something.
Sure, Alan.
Um, Speaking as a lifelong addict of personal development and personal growth, um, and having read all kinds of books and taken psychedelics in the pursuit of uh, greater understanding, when you talk about healing the subconscious mind, to me, it's almost like, how do you do that other than with electroshock or lobotomy? Uh, because I've honestly tried,
Right.
and nothing has worked. And I'm now 79 years old. As one might say, I'm an old dog who has kind of lost his belief that he can be taught new tricks, um, as much as I would like to believe it. But
So,
I
Alan,
constantly catch myself in these automatic reactions, and this running subtext to my life that, short of some dramatic miracle occurring under hypnosis or God knows what, I'm losing faith in my ability, regardless of the approach used, the tools used, to actually heal the subconscious mind.
right. So you're right about hypnosis and any other method that goes beyond the conscious participation. So hypnotists certainly can help, especially if they understand how the inner child works and the patterns and the habits and what it is that they need to help you release. I use something else, and that is called MAP. And let me see whether I mentioned that. Okay, I work with the subconscious. MAP is a system which trains your subconscious to become a healer. It's actually a divine part of you that is being trained. And because it is your subconscious, it can heal the traumas. So um, when a person, okay, take the whole picture. You get triggered, a sign of the inner child. It's disturbing. If you stop and say, well, that's a message from my heart. What can I learn? That's one step. But then when you have the map working for you, make anything possible system work for you, after you've had enough acquaintance of how it worked, you can say, okay, I got it. This pertains to my feeling unsafe, or my feeling violated, or my feeling bullied, or whatever it is. And all the memories connected with this and all the trauma parts throughout my history connected with this, from my parent not being there, from being bullied in school, whatever it is, you can say superconscious, please treat the pain and do everything else necessary, creating a massive change history in all three memory systems and all timelines and in every level of consciousness. That is briefly how I work with individuals, and they can experience shifts in them, and sometimes only partial shifts because there's a boulder in the stomach that hasn't been attended to. But then we pay attention to that. So gradually, we use your subconscious on your behalf rather than letting it work naturally, disabling you from being in peace. So that's my short version of that explanation of how I work effectively with the subconscious. And I've gotten to a point, I think, where my triggers are not as often and not as strong, but they come. So then I had to say, oh, what inner child is here? And then I go back and my work with clients often trigger memories about the child I haven't found yet, so I can include that. So it's a method by which at first you work with a practitioner, then you have the capacity of using this, your subconscious to heal yourself.
Uh,
I, yeah,
the person who is registered on a Samsung device asked this question: have you ever unlocked something in the inner child that you could not help to heal, or unleash something you cannot help to control? Did you hear me, Ann?
I'm thinking,
I can't see your thinking. Sorry.
really? That's a big question. I'm thinking both something like this. I've worked with people and they've dropped away because they've been healed enough. And then they come back and say, I'm having trouble with this because the inner children do resist. They're committed to your survival, and they're not so sure they're willing to let go of that commitment. So the resistance is there at various levels. But if you stay with us long enough, we meet the resistant parts, we address them, and it might be very particular what they're not trusting. But we address as much as we can and ask superconscious to treat. So it is layer by layer. And I think I've been in it long enough to know that there's nothing that cannot be treated. So I don't know whether I answered the question. Did I answer the question?
Well, I don't wish to presume anything, but when Alan mentioned nothing works, uh, there's a number of beliefs that might underlie something like that. You could have the belief that nothing works for me. You could have the belief that I don't deserve to be healed. There could be other beliefs that sort of limit what one can do on one's own, in terms of being able to see patterns and being able to work through them.
Does that make sense, Alan?
Oh, it makes sense. I mean, I can remember therapy sessions where I thoroughly impressed the therapist by how articulate I could be about all of my issues, all the glitches in my operating system. If there is some wisdom in the Greek call to know thyself. Well, I know myself. You know, that hasn't helped me to heal.
Okay. So, so do you hear Doug suggesting that there are inner children who have, because of what happened early on, are committed to the idea, I don't deserve anything good?
Whew.
You don't need to answer, Alan. I just wanted to present that as a possible idea. I don't
Yeah.
deserve anything better in life than what I have, is another form. Because early on, those ideas can be created. I don't have what I need. It must be that that's my life. That's another pattern or belief. This is my life. It doesn't get any better. In fact, it can only get worse. You have a pessimistic aspect to you that the inner child has. This is as good as it gets. It doesn't get any better. And that belief needs to be addressed because it came very early on and others like it. So I am now running out of time and I want to
I
get
would
back.
like to mention one other thing. Um, Understanding doesn't heal anything.
Yeah,
Oh, no,
insight is
sure, I
not
hear that.
the ticket.
Love,
Understanding,
love, compassion, those forces heal.
So you're actually referring to self-compassion?
Self-compassion and compassion for those who may have hurt you.
which
Yep.
comes later.
That's, but I mean, all that is familiar ground. Um, it's just that I keep um, butting my head and my heart on this growing sense that some of these issues are baked into my psyche so deeply that I don't stand a chance to actually heal them. And this is after trying all kinds of approaches, including, breath work, holotropic breathing, uh, rapid eye movement. I've tried so many ways, but there seems to be this this core programming that I just can't get past, no matter how much self-compassion or courses or journaling or what have you. Because I have a feeling it goes back so far that it's actually into the basic um, program of my mind. Like it probably happened. It probably happened from my earliest memories as a child. I'm not sure. Um,
I'm going to have to
if you're
stop
hearing
you.
if you're hearing a level of despair in this, I won't deny it. Because I've invested an awful lot of energy and money and time into personal growth, my own personal growth. Plus, I've lived through, disastrous marriages and learned, or at least I thought I learned a great deal from these failed marriages. Um, with a tendency to turn the spotlight on myself, like where did I go wrong here? What's the glitch in my operating system that has either resulted in a good relationship going bad or attracting a bad relationship to begin with?
So there's a lot that I would like to respond to you, but I only have minutes left, so I want to provide an invitation. If any of what I spoke about or touched upon, you have questions about, I offer you an invitation to book a chat with me just about to talk about what happened in this session, or to talk about what my one-on-one map sessions look like, or to talk about a 90-day Fixers Freedom program that I've created. And the point I want to leave with is, what would be possible if you no longer had to carry everything for everyone else? What would be possible if the attitude you have was turned to yourself? You turn the care that you give to others, the love that's inherent in that, the compassion, you turn to yourself. I wanted to play to you this woman who I spoke about, who was the social media expert who crawled from pneumonia out of bed to do her executive producing situation. I wanted to play her video because at the end she said, "What I have now is self-compassion." She has finally moved through all that to connect with herself, her heart, that she can be there for herself and her heart first. And that is the healing that is possible from what I present and work with. And so please book. And Doug, can you put this in the chat?
Yes, I'll
It's
put that
something
in the
different,
chat.
right? In the chat, how you can get to my scheduler. And I have times open after 1 today, my time, and not tomorrow because it's full of map sessions, but on the weekend, I have half a day opened up for anyone who wants to speak further about what we've spoken about. Yeah, anything that you want to talk about pertaining to what was presented today.
Uh,
Yeah.
Thank you very much. I have a questions. My question is really simple. Might be possible another persons can ask the same questions before, but I would love to repeat, and I am expected that you can close my question within few words. How we can control our emotions? That's end.
Okay. And did I hear you correctly? How can you control your emotions?
Yeah,
Okay. You don't control emotions. You have them.
but
With the yeah, you feel them, you have them because you listen to them because it's your heart talking to you. So Zaki, we can book a session and I can explain that to you in greater depth about resetting
uh,
emotionally. Yeah?
uh, yeah, I think have a session link in the chat session. Yeah, I copied. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, good. Thank you for
Yeah,
your question because this presentation is not long enough to
yeah.
be very thorough. But if it's something that invites you, so you put that in the chat so I can close this, right, Doug?
Yes.
Okay. So We are down to a few participants because we're over time. But, and thank you for being here. And I hope that you will choose to spend time with me to discuss what it's brought up in you so I can explain further. I'm here to be as helpful as I can in all the ways that I can. And this was all about acknowledging how the inner children and its patterns have been there to help you survive. And here you are, and we get to appreciate them, but we don't want to be stuck with the beliefs and patterns that were created too young to deal with what we have to deal with as adults. Does that make sense? Is that a good
Yes.
thing to end with? All right. Thank you for staying here. And thank you for those of you who are making acknowledgments in the chat. And I hope to see you in a Let's Chat session. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
By the way, you were from?
Hang on a second. I'm going to turn off the recording.